First of all, like Deputy Lawler, I'd like to commend the Minister on his active determination to improve our education system despite the very difficult circumstances in which he has to operate. As he knows, I'm a person with a lot of teaching experience, having been a school's principal and teacher in both mainstream schools and in school for physically disabled children. So that anything I say really is in the context of my experience. I'd just like to concentrate on a couple of areas. The first relates to Section 6 of the bill. It may come as a surprise that I welcome the provisions which provide for procedures in relation to the suspension and dismissal of teachers by a board in accordance with procedures laid down by the Minister. Obviously, the dismissal of anybody should be a last resort, and insofar as it's possible to assist teachers who are in some way in distress or in difficulty, the more that there can be guidance and assistance for them, that should be done. And I think it's very important to recognise that the vast majority of teachers and indeed public servants generally do an excellent job, and really it is the practice of a very small number that brings teaching from time to time into disrepute, or indeed the public service. And indeed I think part of that, if I can just broaden it to the public service for a minute, I think part of the problem is that it is so difficult to actually dismiss somebody in the public service, and I think that is an area that needs to be looked at, because it is wrong that people should get paid for a job that they are not doing, and I think it takes from the value of the excellent work that's been done by others, and it is one of the things that leads to a situation where public service, including teaching, can be criticised, often grossly unfairly. Just in relation to the question of dismissal, could I just say that I think it's very important that in addition to the Board of Management being involved, because when you're dealing with the Board of Management, as Deputy Culreevy referred to earlier, you are often dealing with situations where people know each other very well, and that can be a positive thing, it can also be a negative thing. So I do think it's very important, and I hope that you intend to do this, that there would be an input from an inspector from the department as well in any such decision, because in doing that, it would be more a guarantee of objectivity, and I think that's really important, because you can have unfortunate situations where a person can be picked on because they happen to be disliked by a group or whatever. I'd just like to refer also to another subsection 1, the last part of subsection 1, subsection 1E of section 6. This is which relates to the duties and responsibilities of the principal and so on. And it also relates to parental involvement. And I think parental involvement in schools is extremely important, and it is much more significant than it has been. And in general, that has been very beneficial for both the school and for the individual pupils, because if parents are seriously interested in their children's education, the child nearly always benefits in that situation. However, there is a problem though as well, and that is this, that sometimes parents, because they are so wrapped up in their own children, they can't look at the broader picture, and it is very, very important that there are lines which mustn't be crossed in terms of parental involvement in schools. And I'm referring specifically to interfering in how a class is being run and in discipline. And I have come across, in my own practice as a teacher, I have come across cases where, for example, where a child unfortunately had to be suspended for a few days, and the father arrived in the next day and said, well, he's coming to the school. And even though I pointed out to him that it wasn't just my decision, it was a board decision that he was suspended, he insisted on the child staying in the school.
Just 2 minutes remaining.
And it led to quite a difficult situation. And it was, but I mean, there had to be legal threats involved before it was resolved. And it is difficult sometimes for parents to understand that, you know, a rule applies to their child just the same as everybody else, and so that's an area where I think perhaps some guidance might be given. The other thing that I would like to focus on is in relation to the Teaching Council. Now, I have to admit that when I was a teacher, and for the teachers that I knew, the Teaching Council seemed to be an organisation that looked for €90 from you every year. And those of us who have been teaching quite a while wondered why it was necessary, because people who teach in a school and have permanent positions have to get probated, and therefore they have that is in a sense an official stamp from the Department of Education that they are qualified teachers. And I don't really see why there can't just be a list of such teachers in the department. Unless you intend that there be other responsibilities for the Teaching Council. I can see in relation to teachers that work outside. Right. Okay. Thank you. In relation to that, I can see in terms of teachers who work outside the state system, it would be very important to provide something that would be recognised as a standard that could be seen by anybody.
I'll have to ask the Deputy to conclude, because Deputy Field in response.